first of all, you're at Stanford. It's known for also, it's really known for its academic prowess as well. And for being a school where, smart people go, but they don't go to loaf. Smart people go there to work, right? And it's a lot of work. And then you also have to take care of yourself and do all of your laundry and get food and cook your food and do all these things. Let's dive into the how swimming evolved for you as a college student now, because while before you had the support of your family system, these familiar coaches, the familiar teammates, and the people that you'd be racing against at all like these different races, and suddenly now you're at this collegiate level, you're taking care of yourself. Your family is distant. Your coaches are different. Your teammates are different. You're swimming against different people, I would assume. Everything has changed for you. So how did swimming change for you? Was it constant, or did you find swimming also changing amongst all the other things?
It changed completely. And you really hit the nail on the head there, the support system. I had this amazing support system in high school, which I feel so lucky and grateful for that environment, to grow up in that environment. It was just phenomenal. And I didn't have it when I went to college. And I mean, all of those people were still there, but not in the way, I wasn't seeing those coaches every day. And the coaches in college are very, very different. They are working with a very different value proposition than an age group coach. An age group coach in swimming, their job is to develop you as an athlete. That's their only job. And to make sure that you're having fun doing it. I mean, if they're a good coach. In college, it's a business. And I did not understand that. I did not expect that. I kind of thought, I had stars in my eyes. Oh, the Stanford coach. And, I thought, of course, it's going to be more of the same. I just thought it would be an extension of the same support and the same positivity and the same focus on process and the same appreciation of fun. No, it got very serious very fast. And one of the things I don't think I really appreciated right away, but translated to how the coach was interacting with the team, was the money. There's money involved now. I'm on scholarship. This isn't something I'm doing for fun that my parents are paying for me to do anymore. This is, there's real money on the line here. The university expects the team to perform in a certain way. They expect the coach to get certain results. And that was a whole new layer of pressure that I didn't expect. I was totally unfamiliar with. And then, like you said, you're in a completely new place, responsible for a host of things that you've never necessarily had to be responsible for. And in addition to that, your accustomed support network is gone. And now suddenly it's trying to make friends with other kids in the dorm. And, meanwhile, I'm gone most of the day because I'm up at 5 a.m. to do my morning workout. Then I'm in classes, and then I'm going back to the pool for afternoon practice. And the NC2A rules, I don't know the exact limit now, and they may have changed this, but at the time, the NC2A said you are not allowed to train more than a certain number of hours per week. So I think the limit was like 20 hours or something like that. You're not allowed to train more than 20 hours a week. We trained between 30 and 40 hours a week.
Wow.
And all of the extra.
With your course load and everything else that you're taking as well as a full-time student at Stanford. Yep.
And then, but the extra, quote unquote, air quotes, was quote unquote optional, right? Which,
got it.
You're on scholarship. It is not optional. It's not optional for anybody.
Because if you skip it and then other people aren't skipping it, then you're likely to lose your scholarship. I mean, you're just not going to, I mean,
right.
As terrible as that is, it makes sense. Yeah.
Right. I don't know that, I'm not sure that would be the case. I don't know if they could take your scholarship away from you, but also there's the team element, right? Like, you don't want to be the one person on the team who's the weak link. You don't want to be the person who's loafing. If you see everyone around you, quote unquote, carrying their weight, you want to do the same, and you don't want to let anybody down. And so it was very grueling. And again, you go back to the dorm and you want to hang out and interact with people and really make friends and have that free time. But I mean, you still have to get your homework done. You still have to sleep. I mean, most mornings I'd be getting up when everybody else in the dorm was coming in to go to bed. And you just felt like you were missing out on such a big part of college life. So you're trying to still be involved in that part, but then train 40 hours a week and go to classes. And then you still have to study, right? It's not just about going to classes and ticking the boxes. You got to study and you got to do your homework. And it was overwhelming. It was so much. And add to that my freshman year was, I went to Stanford fall of 99. So we were coming into an Olympic year. So all of my teammates who were sophomores, juniors, and seniors were preparing for the Olympics. And so I walked into a situation which in and of itself was a much higher pressure environment than we would have had for another 4 years, right? Because all of my collegiate teammates, were there for, at the time it was Pac-10. We were there for Pac-10 championships, NC2A championships. That's our focus as a collegiate team. But as individual athletes, all of my teammates were training for the Sydney Olympics, and many of them had a very real shot at gold. One of them did win gold. And so the level of pressure that was just a constant element in our training was really, really high. And so to come from this really super warm, fuzzy, supportive environment into like, okay, we have people who better get Olympic medals because this reflects well on Stanford, and, we better get NC2A results, and we better do this, and we better do that. And stepping into that at the same time as losing a support network and trying to handle a massive workload and training load was debilitating. I really started crumbling pretty quickly.
Yeah, you mentioned that when you were in high school, you had this kind of like yin and yang balance and interplay of early morning physical workout. And then you had throughout the day, you would have all of the more cerebral focused studying and classwork and everything else that you did. And it seems like now it feels like it's overwhelming because then there's many other components that are coming toward it. What need was swimming fulfilling for you at this point? And maybe that's a hard question to even answer. I'm not sure, but in college,
question, though.
What was it doing for you? Kind of grounded you when you were in high school, but what was it doing?
Yeah,
now?
It really grounded me in high school. And I think very early on, so before I even went to Stanford, my freshman year, we had a preseason training camp at the Olympic Training Center with the swim team. And so we were getting to know each other, and it felt, I thought it would mean that I would automatically have this group of best friends and that would make my transition so much easier. And I loved the women on that team. Absolutely loved them. They're phenomenal women. But the nature of your relationship with your teammates, I mean, we were working really hard and we were training really hard. So we weren't really socializing in a way that made it feel like a really core group of friends. And one of the things that they did was made sure that athletes were assigned to dorms with non-athlete roommates to help us assimilate. But that actually kind of made it harder because you didn't have time to socialize with your teammates as much. And you also didn't really have time to socialize with your roommates either. And I think that the pressure that I felt in every training session, seeing everyone around me who was like, everyone around me is training for an Olympic gold medal right now. And I knew that I wasn't quite at that level at that point. I hoped that it was something I might be able to achieve in the future. But it was a lot. There was an element of seriousness, and there was a framing around the training that was sort of like, if you're laughing and joking and having fun, you're not being serious. And if you're not serious, you're not going to be good. And I don't think that individually the athletes,
for you.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think the individual athletes bought into that ethos, but the coaching and the kind of the environment, the structure we were in, especially with the Olympics on the horizon, was very much like that. And I felt like I shouldn't joke around. I felt like I shouldn't be having fun. I should be getting in and working hard. And so the social escape and the escape into joy and fulfillment really wasn't there for me the way that it was. And the workload was so much higher. So whereas before I would do some weight training and then most of my training in the pool, now we were doing tons of pool training, but we were doing dryland circuits. We were doing bonkers like Russian powerlifting programs in the weight room. We were doing yoga and Pilates. And I mean, it was just training stacked on training, stacked on training. And with each of those things, I didn't know how to do Pilates. I had to learn how to do Pilates. I was, the dryland circuit was a whole new learning experience. Completely different way of training in the pool. The way that we were training and we were approaching volume and the whole, everything was different. So we talk a lot on the podcast too about cognitive load. Whereas cycling had been this very Zen meditative escape for me. Now it was this very intense, stimulating, I have to be processing at high speed because there's huge cognitive load and I'm not feeling like I'm catching up with that. And then I'm going from that to classes where I'm being challenged intellectually on a level that's very different from high school and there's huge cognitive load there. And then I'm going back to the dorm where I don't really know anybody. So now there's mental and emotional load, right? That you're not going and hanging out with my high school friends who've known me forever that I can just really relax and be myself with because they get me. You're going back and you're having those, so what dorm are you in? Where did you grow up? It was so much. And I'm not alone in this. This is a really, really common experience for athletes in college. And I think that losing swimming as an escape was huge because that, like you said, in high school, that brought so much balance. And now nothing felt like balance. I felt out of my depth in the classroom. I felt out of my depth in the pool. Haha.
That's good. I like that. I can tell you're going to be a parent real soon, Amber. Sorry. Definitely.
Yeah. But yeah, it was, it took a very, very different place in my life. And it became, at first it was, okay, this is no longer an escape. And then it became more and more stressful. As time went on.
Trap you actually.
Yeah.
So this seems like a shift from learning or from a shift from going from internal self-fulfillment and validation to going to external sources of validation because that's just the way it was. And it was all those external pressures were just placed on you all of a sudden and really like a jarring shift to be able to deal with.
Exactly. And
go ahead.
I was just going to say, and then if we tie that back to, we talked about that little dark undercurrent that was becoming, that was, bubbling up toward the end of high school. And that undercurrent was this self-doubt of maybe I'm not actually good enough. Well, now I go from being in a program where I'm respected for who I am. I'm also one of the better swimmers in the program, big fish in a smaller pond. And then I jump onto a team where everyone around me is an Olympic contender, medal contender. I mean, talk about imposter syndrome and talk about that little dark undercurrent now is starting to feel pretty validated, right? Like if I thought I wasn't good enough before, now I have all of this mounting evidence for, wow, look how much better all of these other people are around you that you're watching every day. You're watching them be so much better than you every day. And that doubt, it just started feeding that doubt. And then, okay, you didn't sleep very well last night, so you get up to go to morning practice. So you're not really at 100%. And guess what? You're not going to perform that well in practice. And oh, hey, that's going to make you feel like maybe I'm not that good enough. Maybe I'm not good enough. And then you go from that morning practice, poor night of sleep. Now you're kind of down about not a great workout. You've lost more sleep because you've been up really early for morning practice. You go straight into a block of classes where you're really struggling to focus and pay attention and engage at the level that you normally do. Plus, it's more challenging material. And now suddenly you're thinking, geez, maybe I'm not as smart as I thought I was. And then you're walking around this campus where you're talking to people who are like piano prodigies and kids they've already won awards for genetic discoveries.
Right.
And so you're looking around, you're going, man, I suck at everything. And so that little undercurrent that had started continued into college and just started to snowball because there was a lot of quote unquote evidence supporting you don't belong here. You're not that
Sure.
good. And again, it wasn't all of a sudden I just thought, oh, I suck. But it was just, it became a current that I was constantly fighting to try to maintain belief. Like, okay, no, I'm just going to go to workout. And if I do my workouts and I work hard, I'll get stronger. I know I can do that. And it was the fixed mindset pushing back against the growth mindset. And really with all of that momentum, it made it really, really hard to fight back with more growth mindset. And it got harder and harder as time went on.
If you like this video, make sure you give us a thumbs up.
If you didn't like this video, you can give it a thumbs down, but let us know what you would have done differently in the comments below.
If you want to see more of these videos, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you want to become a faster cyclist, check out TrainerRoad.com.
Do it.